know that feeling when you check your bank account and there's something there? Maybe a few $1,000s, maybe more. And for a second you feel okay. You feel like you're doing fine. But then you think about the future. Like, the actual future. And you realize, this isn't enough. Not even close. And here's the thing that nobody really talks about. Saving your first $100,000 feels impossible. Like, genuinely impossible. You look at people who've done it and you think, what do they know that I don't? Or maybe, they must make way more money than me. But what if I told you that getting into 100,000 has almost nothing to do with how much you make, and everything to do with something most people never figure out? So, let's just be honest for a second. Most of us were never taught how to save. We were taught to work hard, pay our bills, maybe put a little away if there's anything left over. But that's not a strategy. That's just surviving. And the problem is, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, or even just paycheck to almost paycheck, saving $100,000 sounds like trying to climb a mountain with no gear. You don't even know where to start. But here's what I've realized after years of watching people do this, studying their habits, their psychology, their mistakes. Most people think the goal is to save $100,000. But that's not actually the goal. The real goal is to become the kind of person who can save $100,000. And that's a completely different thing. Because once you hit that number, something changes. Not just in your bank account, in your brain, in your confidence, in the way you see money. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, said the first 100,000 is well, he used a word I won't say on YouTube. But the point is, it's the hardest part. It's brutal. It's slow. And it requires you to change in ways that are deeply uncomfortable. But after that, everything gets easier. Alright, so why is the first 100,000 so hard? Let me show you something. Let's say you're saving $500 a month. That's not nothing. That's real money. If you keep that up, it'll take you about 16.5 years to hit 100,000. 16 years. You could start at 25 and not get there until you're over 40. But here's where it gets interesting. Once you have that 100,000 and you invest it, let's say in a boring index fund averaging about 8% a year, that money starts making $8,000 a year without you doing anything. That's like having a part-time job you never have to show up for. And the next 100,000? It doesn't take 16 years. It takes maybe 7 or 8, because now your money is working with you. You're not just saving. You're building momentum. This is what people mean when they talk about compound interest. But I don't think most people really feel what that means until they see it happen. It's like pushing a car uphill. At first you're straining, you're sweating, it barely moves. But once you get over the top and it starts rolling downhill, you're just steering. So the question isn't really, how do I save $100,000 fast? The question is, how do I get over that hill as fast as possible so I can stop pushing so hard? And that's where psychology comes in. Because here's the truth. Most people sabotage themselves before they even start. They think they need to make 6 figures to save. They think they need to live like monks. They think they have to give up everything they enjoy. And because that feels impossible, they don't start at all. But the people who actually do this, they don't make perfect decisions. They make consistent decisions. And they understand something really important. In the beginning, your savings rate matters way more than your investment returns. Let me say that again. In the beginning, your savings rate matters way more than your investment returns. You could pick the best stocks in the world, but if you're only saving $50 a month, you're not getting anywhere. On the other hand, if you're saving $1,500 or $2,000 a month, even if you just put it in a high-yield savings account, you're going to hit that $100,000 in 4 or 5 years, maybe less. So the real question is, how do you save that much without making yourself miserable? Here's where most advice gets it wrong. People tell you to cut out coffee, cancel subscriptions, stop going out, and sure, maybe that saves you $100 a month. But it also makes you feel deprived. It makes saving feel like punishment. And eventually, you burn out. The people who actually build wealth fast don't just cut expenses. They do something smarter. They create a gap between what they earn and what they spend, and then they widen that gap as fast as possible. That means 2 things. 1, yes, you control your spending, but not by cutting out joy, by cutting out waste. The stuff you're paying for that you don't even notice. The subscriptions you forgot about. The car payment on a car you didn't need to impress people you don't like. The extra space you're renting because you think you need it. And 2, you increase your income. And I know. Easier said than done. But here's the thing. Most people never even try. They stay in the same job, doing the same thing, hoping for a 3% raise every year. Meanwhile, someone else is learning a new skill, switching companies, starting a side project, asking for a promotion. And in 2 years, they're making $20,000 more. You don't have to become an entrepreneur. You don't have to work 80 hours a week. But you do have to be intentional. You have to ask yourself, what's my time worth and how can I make it worth more? Because time is the one thing you can't get back. If you're 25 and you start saving aggressively now, you could hit 100,000 by 30. If you wait until you're 35, you're starting a decade behind. That's a decade of compound growth you'll never get back. So here's the shift that changes everything. Most people see $100,000 as this far-off finish line, something they'll get to eventually. Maybe, if life goes well. But the people who actually get there, they see it as a milestone, not the end, the beginning. Because once you have $100,000 working for you, you're not just saving anymore. You're investing in your own freedom. You're buying time. You're buying options. You're buying the ability to say no to things you don't want to do. And that's when money stops being about money. It starts being about peace of mind. Think about it. Imagine waking up and knowing you have $100,000 in the bank. Not because you're rich. Not because you're trying to retire at 30. Just because you built a foundation. How would that change the way you make decisions? Would you stay in a job you hate? Maybe not. Would you feel trapped by every unexpected expense? Probably not. Would you lie awake at night wondering what happens if your car breaks down or you lose your job? No. Because you'd know you have a cushion. A real one. That's the psychological shift. And it doesn't happen at $1 million. It happens way earlier than you think. For most people, it happens somewhere between 50 and 100,000. That's when you stop feeling like you're drowning and start feeling like you're building something real. So let's get practical. How do you actually do this? First, automate everything. The biggest mistake people make is trying to save what's left over at the end of the month. That doesn't work. You need to pay yourself first. Set up automatic transfers the day after your paycheck hits. If you never see the money, you won't miss it. Second, aim for a 20 to 30% savings rate if you can. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you're making $50,000 a year and you can save $15,000, you'll hit $100,000 in about 6 years. If you're making $75,000 and you save $22,000, you'll get there in 4. Can't hit 20% yet? Start with 10, then push it to 12, then 15. Every raise you get, every bonus, every tax refund, put at least half of it towards savings. Don't let your lifestyle inflate just because your income did. Third, keep your big 3 expenses low. That's housing, transportation, and food. If you can live below your means in those areas, everything else becomes easier. You don't need to live in a tiny apartment and eat rice and beans. But you also don't need a luxury car or a place that costs half your paycheck. Fourth, invest as you go. Don't just save in a regular checking account. Open a high-yield savings account or a brokerage account. Even if you're just putting money into a simple index fund, that money is growing while you sleep. And over time, that growth becomes a huge part of how you hit 100,000. And fifth, this is the one people forget. Track your progress. Not obsessively, but regularly. Check in every few months. Watch that number grow. Celebrate the milestones. 10,000, 25,000, 50,000. Because if you don't acknowledge the progress, it's easy to feel like nothing's changing. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is easy. It's not. Saving your first 100,000 is hard. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to make choices that most people around you won't understand. But here's what I know. It's possible, and it's worth it. Because the first 100,000 isn't just about the money. It's about proving to yourself that you can do hard things. It's about taking control of your future instead of just hoping it works out. It's about building a foundation that everything else in your life can rest on. And beautiful thing, once you get there, you're not the same person you were when you started. You're stronger. You're smarter. You're more confident, and you've got momentum. So if you're starting from 0, or 5,000, or 20,000, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you start today. Not next month. Not when you get a raise. Today. Because the person you'll be 5 years from now, the one with 100,000 at the bank, the one who feels secure, the one who has options, that person is counting on the choices you make right now. And I think they'd be proud of you for even thinking about this. You've got this.